Draco Malfoy, the ever-sneering and taunting presence within the castle walls of Hogwarts. Wherever he goes, there is always a snide comment to be made, and a plot to be schemed. But behind this antagonistic character lies a warning to all of us. Just a quick reminder to like and subscribe as it helps the channel greatly. Now, back to the video. If we consider Draco's behavioural patterns throughout the series, one of his dominant traits is an overt expression of superiority and bravado. However, there is another trait that seems to lurk not far behind this: fear and insecurity. There are many scenes where we see Draco's overt bravado turn to fear or discomfort. For example, in the Philosopher's Stone, after much boasting and bragging from Draco, when he and Harry find themselves in the Forbidden Forest, all of Draco's bravado has scurried away and been replaced with overt fear. We see another form of this in The Prisoner of Azkaban. During Draco's first meeting with Buckbeak, Draco makes fun of Hagrid's warnings and storms up to Buckbeak. The Hippogriff attacks him, and Draco's smug attitude disappears instantly. To be clear, I think most of us would be afraid of having to walk through the Forbidden Forest at age 11 or being kicked by a Hippogriff at age 13. But the point of interest from an archetypal perspective with Draco is the split nature of his personality, his extroverted expression of superiority paired with fear and insecurity. From the perspective of Jungian theory, the archetype of the persona is very present in Draco's character. The persona is what we present to the world. It is the communal aspect of our nature. It's what allows us to coexist as a collective. It's the sense of shared cultural and social values. The healthy integration of the persona would look like one's ability to adapt and live communally with their environment while still being aligned with their inner self. However, if the individual's persona is very different from their inner self, then this causes a psychological imbalance and inner turmoil. The persona essentially becomes a mask hiding their true self. Now, naturally, one's first community is the household in which one grows up. Looking at the Malfoys' home, Draco comes from a family of Death Eaters who value status and pure-blood supremacy. So unsurprisingly, Draco's persona reflects this in a major way. Throughout the series, Draco protects his family-derived persona intensely. He clings to it and identifies completely with it. And yet, considering the stark contrast of Draco's moments of boasting superiority and his moments of dread and trepidation, it seems likely that Draco's overt expression of status and superiority is compensating for much deeper and genuine insecurities. Draco spends almost the entire series antagonizing Harry. However, in the last two books, Draco himself is recruited by Voldemort. Voldemort can be understood symbolically as the Shadow, which in essence is all of the repressed and feared parts of the psyche. The fact that Draco was used by Voldemort, I believe, reveals a cautionary tale about the persona and the Shadow. You see, Draco is clearly over-identified with his persona. He is committed to being the person his family molded him to be. While the persona serves a crucial communal function for all of us, we can't confuse our public face with the more nuanced truth of our personality. Draco has always displayed a lot of fear and a vulnerability that clearly doesn't align with what he so keenly presents. Draco's over-identification with his persona brings a number of troubles for him. Firstly, Draco is often surrounded by friends, however they aren't actually deep or true friendships. These friends of his seem to be just as focused on the desire for status as Draco. Draco himself has high status within his circles due to his family's influence, and Draco wields this indulgently. But it doesn't produce true friendship. In fact, if we look at Draco and Harry's interaction upon first arriving at Hogwarts, Draco tries to befriend Harry. He does this due to Harry's fame and potential status. He claims to be able to help Harry pick friends wisely and encourages him not to pick Ron due to his family's low status. Harry, however, rejects Draco's offering and sees through him. Draco is embarrassed by this, and from that day they are rivals. On the conscious level, Draco was simply doing what he knew, what he thought he was supposed to do. From his conditioning, he was following what he believed to be the proper order of things. But Harry did something entirely different to what Draco had experienced up until that point. Harry acted with integrity and honesty and stood up for his new friend based on character alone. It appears that Draco's antagonistic fixation on Harry throughout the series derives from a fear of this different value system Harry displays, which threatens what Draco knows. Considering Draco's fear and insecurity, which he tries to hide behind bravado and superiority, It seems to me that he is threatened by Harry in such a major way because he unconsciously wants what he has. But Harry's integrity and kindness threatens Draco's entire persona and what he understands about how the world works from his family upbringing. It would be too disorienting to try to understand it, not to mention Draco is embarrassed by the public rejection and how that would harm his status. Therefore, Draco automatically leans further into his persona and family values. He instead tries to bring Harry, his threat, down. Yet, as Draco's story progresses, it gets darker. In The Half-Blood Prince, Voldemort tasks Draco with the mission of killing Dumbledore and getting Death Eaters into Hogwarts. Understanding Voldemort as the Shadow, the feared and repressed parts of the psyche, Draco is now being controlled and influenced by the Shadow. When one is over-identified with their persona, they are ignoring and denying other parts of the psyche, notably the Shadow. The cautionary tale from a psychological perspective is that when one is over-identified with their persona and in denial of everything else in their psyche, they are more susceptible to being overwhelmed and controlled by their shadow. It metaphorically speaks to the dangers of an unintegrated shadow. If these other aspects of the psyche are not integrated, then the individual is not a unified collection of traits, but rather a collection of traits warring with one another. The individual is then divided. The process of psychological maturation is the process of integrating all these different aspects of the psyche, unifying the individual. So in the case of Draco, he has been ignoring his deeper insecurities, fears, and feelings. His commitment to his persona has led to the shadow overwhelming and influencing his behavior, leaving him alone and at breaking point. However, there is still a tentative redemptive arc in this character's story. You see, in The Half-Blood Prince, the experience of being overwhelmed by the shadow is a wake-up call for Draco. We see Draco's moral struggling throughout this installment, which can be seen as the beginning of the persona's tight grip starting to loosen, and the confrontation with the true self underneath. We see this mostly in the Deathly Hallows. There is a significant moment which shows a very different side to Draco. He doesn't identify Harry at the Malfoy Manor, which if he did would redeem his family's relationship with Voldemort. However, despite Draco knowing it was Harry, he claims that he is unable to identify him, a clear indication that he doesn't want to give Harry to Voldemort. If we look at this from a perspective of psychological development, the shadow has begun to overwhelm the individual due to their denial of it and commitment to their persona. It's this overwhelming experience with the shadow that has woken the individual up to their attachment to their persona. The terrible intensity that Draco faced being personally recruited by Voldemort and tasked with killing Dumbledore called into question the persona and family values that he had served up until that point. Draco's inability to kill Dumbledore and his unwillingness to identify Harry reveal his divided nature. They are clear indicators that he is perhaps starting to not be so committed to the persona he was raised in, that his deeper feelings are compelled to the surface of consciousness and can no longer be ignored. It is no way a full redemptive arc, but there is hope here. Draco pays a large price for the persona he is so committed to. This large price is the shadow overwhelming and taking control of him. But it seems that perhaps this price he pays is the start of maturation and integration of these other parts of his psyche that have been repressed and neglected. In other words, the integration of his shadow. This hopeful prospect is most notably implied in the final scene. 19 years after the Battle of Hogwarts, Draco, like Harry, is dropping his children off to Hogwarts and nods with a slight smile to Harry. A clear sign of maturation and having moved on from some of the animosity of their youth, symbolically indicating that Draco is no longer dominated by his family persona, but has indeed integrated more of his true self. Something we must all do if we are to not be consumed by the shadow. You've been watching Archetypal Wisdom. Remember to like and subscribe. Stay wise.